chairman for this meeting. Members, the setup for the meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, can I ask all present to work to the protocols agreed at Council on 2nd of September 2021 in the interest of member and officer safety. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you're giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, Sorry, that doesn't make any sense, that message that's just popped up in my chat. Perhaps you might like to review that message. Sorry, members. Members and officers, during each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn your microphone on and then turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Finally, can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber and advise that the fire exit is the door behind this top table. Let's do that every time. Okay, I'm not going to read out the preamble, but I shall return to it if I need to during the meeting. Thank you. Apologies for absence. May I have the apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies for absence from Councillor Hubner, Councillor Morley and Councillor Dewick.
Thank you very much. I'm still going to have to look at you up there because I'm still not tall enough to look at you down there, even with my 2 cushions. Thank you very much. Item 3, minutes. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of October 2021, found on pages 5 to 6, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder for that motion, seeing as you were the only person here? Thank you. Can we agree those by assent, members? Marvellous. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4, public participation. I can advise that we have not received any submissions from members of the public. Item 5, disclosure of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise during the meeting. Members, do we have any? Councillor Beale, you wanted to speak.
Sorry, Chairman, I'm doing a bit of backpedaling here. I've just read it, and I'm not actually down there either as apologising or here, but I'm sure I was here.
You weren't, because it was just Councillor Hubner, Councillor Mays and I. So you weren't.
You say I was or I wasn't?
You weren't.
Oh, shut up then.
Councillor Beale.
Very alone.
We felt very lonely at the previous meeting. Councillor Lagan was in attendance, if I recall, at the previous meeting.
Yeah.
You were here just wait. See, he doesn't remember either, so
yeah.
You're in good.
It's just that I'm not showing as having sent apologies.
Maybe you didn't.
I always do.
Okay. Stuart, can we amend the minutes to offer apologies from Councillor Beale, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do apologise for whizzing through the agenda, so we've backpedalled a little bit. We have no declarations of interest, members, do we? No. Super. Okay, so review of recent scrutiny requests by members. So we're moving to agenda item 6, review of recent scrutiny requests by members found on pages 7 to 20 of the agenda. This is a report of recent meetings of the Overview and Scrutiny Working Group. Between two meetings held in November and December 2021, we considered 5 member suggestion forms. Section 3.3 of the covering report gives a high-level summary of the 5 items and suggestions of the Overview and Scrutiny Working Group. 2 items, Parks Team Culture and Planning Enforcement, are recommended to keep a watching brief as they are areas where work is underway to address issues, and members are encouraged to feed back on the information that they would like to see by way of assurance for these. Now, I have received further information that is of concern that suggests that things aren't as positive as we might like them to be still in the Parks team. So that's the reason why I want to keep a watching brief on it, and I'm not sure what the protocol is, Mrs. Hughes, whether we bring it back to another working group meeting. How do we go about that?
I think at that point it's best to define what kind of information you'd like to see as part of the watching brief, because we can then report the watching brief back to a committee meeting. So the fact that we've kept the item open on the watching brief, we can just define what information you'd like to see.
Okay.
If the committee agree to that proposal.
Do we agree to that?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely,
Yes,
thank you.
please.
I mean, I would like to see qualitative information around satisfaction, and I'm going to say why. Because we know and we've acknowledged that there have been issues within the Parks team and there have been concerns. And we've agreed a strategy to move on. We now have a health and safety officer. I'm aware of that, which is great. But when so much has gone on and there has been a fair amount of trauma and pain and anger, people need to talk about it. People need to discuss it before they can move on. As Councillor Mays said, that's the basic tenet of therapy. So one cannot just say, "Good evening, Councillor Morris." Which reminds me, I forgot to ask for councillors in attendance. We also have Councillor Lagan in attendance for the minutes. So where was I? You just interrupted me at a crucial moment.
Oh, we were talking about therapy.
We were talking about therapy. We were. No. So what I was saying was, people need to have the space and opportunity to talk about their feelings around what has gone on and what has happened in the past. And I'm a little concerned that that is not happening. So that is a particular area that I would like to be part of the watching brief. Is that clear, Mrs. Hughes? Does that make sense?
Yep. So I've got qualitative data around satisfaction and what space staff are given to discuss previous occurrences.
Thank you, because I am being advised that people are being told to draw a line under it and move on. And as I said, you cannot do that if you're carrying a lot of pain and anger. So thank you for that. Now I've completely lost myself. Here we are. Thank you. The item learning from a recent tribunal gives a detailed response that was received by the working group as set out in Appendix B, pages 16-17 of the agenda pack, and we recommend this provides assurance to the committee. There are no additional items recommended to add to the committee work plan. The committee are asked to review the details and confirm assurance of the working group process and to adopt the recommended courses of action set out in 3.3. We have also received another member suggestion form since this work was completed, so the working group will be meeting again shortly and report back to the committee in due course. Yes, it is. Sorry, you've done that. Yeah. Thank you. It's terribly confusing. I have the chat coming up in the corner and I'm right where my cursor needs to be. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to do that for you.
Thank you. Sorry, listeners and watchers, some technical hitches. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, the recommendations are that the committee reviews the detailed forms attached in Appendix B and is assured that the working group process is happening effectively. And little 2, that the committee approves the recommended courses of action suggested by the working group as set out in section 3.3 of the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mays. Members, do we want to speak about any of these? Anyone want to converse on any of these items? Am I now supposed to read out the massive report, Mrs. Hughes, or can we assume that people have read that?
I've read it.
Yeah, so yeah, if members are happy to confirm their assurance from reading the report, then that's all that we need to do.
That would be marvellous. Thank you.
Agreed.
Can we agree that? Super. Thank you very, very much. Okay, moving on. Item 7, process improvement representatives. So we now move to agenda item 7, process improvement representatives, found on pages 21 to 22. And I think I may defer to you, Mrs. Hughes, on this one to present the report,
Yep.
please. Thank you.
No problem. Good evening, members. In November, the Performance Governance and Audit Committee considered a report around the process improvement framework. This sets out how we work to improve our customer journeys and the internal processes as an organisation. And the links to the full reports are found in the background papers section of this report. We would like members to be part of the improvement work that we do because we know that they can bring a useful perspective for customer testing of our processes. The Performance Governance and Audit Committee appointed 2 member testers, and they recommended that 2 members are also appointed from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee too. This report seeks 2 nominations to be our process improvement member testers.
Thank you very much. I would desperately like to nominate myself, please. So if I could have a seconder.
I'll second that.
Marvellous.
Oh, thank you very
I'll
much.
second that if you're willing to do that. Can we
Yeah.
agree that? Yeah.
Yep.
Marvellous. Because I spend a lot of time complaining about it, and you have to be part of the solution, not
Absolutely.
just part of the problem. So, super. Okay, Mrs. Hughes, I think we have those 2. Unless anybody else wanted to particularly. No, I didn't think so. Thank you. Agreed. Marvellous. Right, scrutiny item 8. Proposed conversion of seating shelter at Promenade Park Maldon into a service kiosk. Now, this item was brought by Councillor Lagan. I'm very pleased to welcome Councillor Lagan to the meeting tonight. So, again, Mrs. Hughes, I'm going to bounce it over to you to present the report, please.
No problem. So this report is an agreed work plan item report set out in Appendix A, page 25 to 28 of your agenda pack is a full report for the item, and the item is titled Proposed Conversion of a Seating Shelter at Promenade Park into a Service Kiosk. As Councillor Bell mentioned, this was originally proposed by Councillor Lagan. The item was agreed to be added to the work plan by committee in October 2021, and the Corporate Governance Project Officer has since conducted an investigation to the scope that was agreed by the committee, and that is set out in section 2.2 of the report. The findings of the report show that officers acted within their delegated powers, and the report provides details around the steps that were taken. This is in section 4.4 to 4.8 of your report. We do also have Steve Butcher, who's joined the meeting, and he is able to address any additional queries should you have them. Although the information provides assurance for this particular decision, the report also highlights a wider finding that more could be done to improve the transparency of delegated decisions. Operationally, officers are already working on this area, and an internal process for recording decisions taken has been put together with the aim of publishing a quarterly list to the website by April 2022. The recommendation is that the report provides assurance for this particular item, and members confirm that the questions have been addressed and that the work plan item can be concluded. Thank you.
Thank you. So, members, do you have any questions or comments before I move to Councillor Lagan? Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question actually is around keeping this item open until we've moved to a point where we can actually see that transparency, and that this decision that was made under delegated powers is always available to members at all times. I don't want this closed until such times as that is assured, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Mrs.
you. Is
Hughes,
that
is that?
So the recommendation for closing the work plan item obviously comes from in section 2.2 of the report. We've gone through what the committee originally defined within the work plan item, and all those questions have been addressed as part of this report. The point about publishing delegated decisions is obviously just something that's been highlighted as would be better practice in the future rather than what was originally part of the item. But we can bring a separate report back. I'm happy to bring a separate report back to committee just to highlight what we've done around delegated decisions reporting. You know, not necessarily as part of this work plan, but just to keep you updated on what's gone on with delegated decisions reporting.
That might be helpful. Would that satisfy you, Councillor Mays?
Yeah, sort of. My only concern is that we come up with all these things that we should be doing. We then close an item and we never revisit it. And we need to make sure, as an ongoing process, that we do that we do actually deliver what we're supposed to be delivering and what we say that we are going to deliver. If we are going to, you know, set something up for April, then we need to make sure that that happens. And that it doesn't just get pushed back. If that's the target date, then I really feel that we, you know, as a result of this, otherwise it may not be done.
I think a good place for reporting on that, obviously we do have to do an annual report of the work plan of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So a good place to pick that up, and obviously when we're drafting that annual report, we could look at all the actions that have come out of Overview and Scrutiny Committee over the last year and to what extent they've been implemented as well, so that's actually part of your sort of full cycle process.
That makes sense.
Yeah, through you. Yes, I'm happy with that. And one of the other recommendations was the implementation of the parks management plan.
Yes.
And I know this is referred to in other documentation. How are we going to pick up that element of this going forward?
I think for an update, Steve or Richard would probably be best placed to respond to that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to whichever of you guys would like to respond then, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Yeah, the Prom Park Management Plan, as you say, is outstanding. So I've arranged for a proposal.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Sorry.
as is the Riverside Park Management Plan.
Yes, indeed. 3 management plans, cemeteries, Riverside Park and Promenade Park. Obviously, this one involves Promenade Park. So we've got a small team being pulled together to actually put a proposal together for the management plans. I've asked for a full sort of specification of those management plans, and I need to know exactly how we're going to go ahead and deliver that plan. It may well need external funding, some funding to procure external services to support that, and I've asked that to be set out very clearly. If necessary, we will take a report through Strategy and Resources Committee to seek funding for that, so we can actually deliver that management plan on management plans, but starting with Prom Park.
So just to clarify, so we need to call someone in to write the plan or to deliver the plan?
To support writing the plan. I mean, it's a wide-reaching plan that looks at the sort of future of Promenade Park or Riverside Park and the cemeteries service itself. But it sets out a number of options, and it needs some consultation on the proposals because it covers everything from the grounds maintenance to future buildings and all aspects of running the park, which it's a fairly large piece of work. So I want to be absolutely transparent what's going to be in that management plan so it can deliver and satisfy the needs that we've identified. As I say, if indeed we can't run that entirely in-house and we do need some external funding, then that's the bit I'll be putting back through Strategy and Resources Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I would have hoped that we would have the skill and talent to do something like that in-house, but maybe we don't. I've been in a minute, Councillor Mays. I've been very vocal around my opposition to use of consultants, and I will remain as vocal about my opposition to the use of consultants. But I will shush now and go to Councillor Mays, please.
Yeah, thank you. We do have the skills in-house. However, if you take those skills out of in-house, it leaves a big hole. So it's one or other. I know from experience that these plans are very large and they do take a number of weeks to complete. They are, however, very important, and I think had they been in place, we would not probably be sitting here looking at this particular item. I know that this item sits within the Central Area Master Plan, and I think the date is coming up for completion of that this year. That was actually scheduled as a short-term project, and you've had 5 years. It's still not been delivered. We need this delivered. I did my background on this. Sorry. I'm just very conscious, again, as I said earlier, it's all very well us sitting here and saying we need to do this, we need to do that, and we need to do the other. We have to do these things, deliver these things, and move forward so that we don't keep making the mistakes that we have in the past, and that this council is a good council for getting things done. So I would urge you to action that as quickly as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mays. So what we are in fact saying, just to clarify, is that it is a capacity issue and not a talent issue. Yeah. That makes me feel better. Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Lagan now and invite questions from you, please, to the officers.
Thank you.
Me indeed, although I'm not sure.
Well, it might be to everyone, Chair. I don't know yet. See how we go. First and foremost, I just want to thank this committee and officers for taking this matter on. The reason why I wanted it to go to committee was I didn't see that the process was followed correctly. There was areas where we could have done better, where we could have put the matter on the table for other businesses to come in to be looked at. This is absolutely no slight at all on the successful applicant. I wish them well. They'll do they'll do a great job. They'll do some good stuff for the towners, which they're already doing. But for me, it's not about individuals, it's about process. So that's why I took it to the committee. The council gets a lot of criticism, always has done, about brown envelopes, openness and transparency. And that's worried me, because without defined proof of those allegations, I can't sit there and say, yes, we should take those forward. But this didn't sit well in that realm, because it gives people the opportunity to make those allegations. So that's the reason why I brought it forward. Also, the shelter does mean something to the people of Maldon. It is a public asset, and that public asset's gone. I'm reconciled with that. The process allows that to happen. But that's something that we really needed to learn from. And another instance was when I took some friends down the prom once, just recently, to look at one of the flower beds that was installed in 1919 that had been taken out. Didn't know anything about it. So communication is an issue on that aspect as well. When I spoke to Stuart Jennings, the author of the report, really we looked at the lack of proper application of the council's contract procedural rules. No best value. So best value is a big thing. Are we getting value for money? Are we maximising the potential for the assets that we've got, the sustainability of residents? And the reason I call that is really about principles. The principles of that contract procedure. What does that contract procedure actually mean? You know, page 26, it talks about it's a building, it's a community asset. You know, that's what it was. And because this has not been done before, because this as a community asset, as a shelter, was determined to be converted into in essence, a retail outlet, the information that we have within the scheme of delegation really talks about buildings and kiosks. It doesn't really talk about converting assets. So there was a little bit, in my mind, there was a little bit of grey, well, a huge element of greyness in there, which you can say, well, that was part of the delegated powers. It says buildings, but really that's very, very grey and very cloudy. The report says in 4.4 that it said the shelter is central to antisocial behaviour. Whilst antisocial behaviour happened in that shelter, always has done, the centre for antisocial behaviour is the lookout down on the sea wall. You can go down there and be as antisocial as you like, because that's where most of the antisocial behaviour goes on there. And I've witnessed and got dozens and dozens of photographs over the last year of people using that shelter for its intended purpose. So it's a sad thing that it's gone in that respect. The other aspect that keeps on coming up and was in the report, and Mr. Butcher and I have had conversations about that, was the demolition of the shelter. That was not the case. Demolition of a shelter would have had to come to planning. Never came to planning. Maybe it was a conversation that was had and was misinterpreted, but that wasn't the case. That shelter was not due to be demolished. I mentioned in there about consultation with members. Yes, there were offers on the 14th and 19th, the 2nd. Informal briefings at 4 o'clock are not conducive to members like myself who work full time, have other council commitments, work for charity organisations, and do other aspects, including further education. Though I try as a member to do the best I can, and had a career change, specifically to become a councillor that I could give time to by being in the country, it's not always possible to attend all of those briefings. It would have been good. Another learning from this is sharing outcomes of briefings and what agendas actually are. What do we need to talk about so people can get prepared? And really, it said that if that option, the option here wasn't chosen for conversion, the structure would have fallen into further disrepair and misuse and cost the council more. Well, the council's never invested in it. It's not a person's fault. Council is a corporate body, but the council's never invested in it. I think that sentence is balderdash. And the last thing that got me was really within the process there was we had this at planning in June, and the planning permission was passed, members passed it, that was fine. But the contractual conversations about costs, etc., weren't done until later on in the year. So to me, again, the process allowed an application to be made without going out to open tender, to be transparent, to be open, to give planning permission for something that we don't really know how much money we're going to get in. So it seems to be roundabout the other way round. So expressions of interest, what could we get for our asset, could have been the way that we could have made a decision. So we just don't know. I know we're getting a return, in my mind a small return, and there's no cost in the conversion of that shelter. But you're going to look at, is that best value? Could we have got more? We don't know. The system allows that. Really, there's nothing we can do about the permissions that have gone through. I think one of the things I've seen I really quite like was the management 410, the escalation of the prom management plan that Mr. Holmes has just spoken about. I have a further comment on that is that there is a motion that's been written and is agreed to be seconded about the scheme of delegation with some of the aspects of operational management on the promenade. I'd like to see going forward member involvement in those operational decisions. Not every Tom, Dick and Sally, not everything that they do, but I'd like that to be built in. So when we come across an asset such as this, members are heavily involved and there's an agreement that this is the way forward and it's open and transparent. If we'd have done that in the first place, we could have said, well, that this is the openness that the council works in. It's transparent. We're getting the best value. It would have offered other people the opportunity to come in and to set their stall up. And maybe even, and I think the applicant actually offered at one point to build another shelter. It's a generous statement to make. We've never followed that up any further. In my mind, it would have been better for the applicant to be allowed to build a really nice development down on the prom and us renovate that community asset that actually means quite a lot to a lot of people, or did. So I appreciate the committee. I appreciate the officers' time. My sadness in the whole process is there. Everybody knows that. But because of the Constitution and because of the way that this has been allowed to fly, I think just by the seat of its pants, within the delegated powers. There's nothing we can do, but we do need to really learn from it, analyse the decisions, because we're leaving ourselves wide open for all those unsubstantiated claims that this council's corrupt. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if either of the officers would like to come back at all on what Councillor Lagan said.
Yeah.
Mr Butcher?
Yeah, more than happy to. Yeah, I think I appreciate your concerns. I don't know, I mean, the report and the scheme of delegation that we were acting within, I don't think, you know, we weren't undergoing a procurement process. We weren't entering into contract negotiations. This was a lease and a rental agreement that we were discussing, and that was the process that was followed. And I think the report clearly indicates that we acted within delegated powers, and there was no evidence of wrongdoing. I've certainly never had my integrity questioned by anybody else, or allegations of backhanders. So that's quite disheartening to hear that you've heard those. The best value process, I think it's current MDC policy that we seek the marketable rate. So we go out there, we get a valuation, and that's the rate that we seek. In this instance, we've actually overachieved on that. I think you mentioned that the buildings is a bit of a grey area for you. So it has foundations and a roof. Therefore, for me, I would warrant that as a building. And I think that's, falls within the delegated powers of the Director of Service Delivery. Yeah, I get that the communications could have been better. We did have a number of ward member briefings that we tried to put in place, and I appreciate that you were unable to attend those. I did make an offer of a one-to-one briefing with yourself, and that was never followed up. Yeah, so all the I've tried to make a list of everything that you've defined, and I'm still sort of struggling. I think that there's a number of policies that I try and work towards. I think there's a council policy within the LDP for tourism that the council supports. Tourism industry, particularly in relation to ensuring the viability of towns and supports the rural economy. Sustainable tourism and leisure developments that benefit local businesses, communities and visitors. It supports the tourism strategy, again signed off by councillors, with collaboration opportunities. The council works in partnership with tourism, leisure operators, business developers and residents in Maldon district. The visitor experience attracts new visitors and repeat visitors, and we strengthen and add value to the visitor and tourist experience across the region. I think, again, the commercial strategy, another strategy that councillors have signed up to, that we adopt a commercial culture, we be open and innovative to resourceful ideas to improve services and outcomes. So it's difficult. We have a scheme of delegation to work within. I have a range of strategies that I work to try and deliver against. And we can, if those parameters change, that's fine. We can work within whatever parameters we're set. But it's a challenge to work within the delegated scheme of authority and these strategies, and then still get a level of scrutiny that on this occasion I fail to see where some of these concerns have come from, and that's my personal view.
Thank you, Mr Butcher. I see Mr Holmes wants to come in, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And start by saying absolutely understand the concerns that have been raised this evening, but equally we were trying to demonstrate that actually we've tried to apply the rules of the council, and we don't believe we've actually broken through those rules themselves. I think the couple of points I wanted to make is around the kiosk itself has been proposed in a former shelter. That shelter has sat there for a number of years, and as you say, it has had a bit of a history, but we've had no other approaches. But when we have an approach from a company, a local company, successful company, saying we can make something of this for you, can actually help you deliver a better income to the council, it's their idea. They've come forward with that. No one else has come forward with those ideas. It was within the delegated powers that we were able to do that. The operator was actually operating on the park in any case with a mobile unit under a small licence. So it's not the first time somebody's come to the council with an idea. The Adventure Golf was another one with a substantial interest. Now, because of the value of that, it absolutely came to members, but it was their idea and members supported that idea. I struggle a little bit where if I come to you with an idea And I said, that's a great idea. Now I'm going to take that, put it out to tender.
Yeah.
Because I've taken their idea, their initiative. And what we did with the larger project was we put it to members, and they recognised it was an investment and an idea from a company, and they supported it. All we've done in this case is taken that idea, worked within the existing rules effectively for the delegation, and have delivered a project that brings an income. So that's all. I just want to make that point. It's simply us trying to deliver against a commercial strategy, trying to resolve a kind of what we consider to be a long-term problem with the actual building, and it still will be there in a different guise, and that really is where we came from, and I hope that just illustrates perhaps the thinking around it.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I still come back to management plan. If we'd had a management plan in place, I think much of this could have been avoided, and we'd have been much more. I think there was lots of discussions going forward, and I hate to say this, Councillor Lagan, I'd have torn it down. I appreciate that you wouldn't have done, and I also appreciate the concerns that you've brought, which I think are well founded. However, equally, the officers have done everything within their powers, their delegated powers, that I can see, and I've tried very hard to look at all of those and work almost backwards, and I can't see how they would have come to any other conclusion. I think the transparency was an issue. Had there been a management plan in place, I believe that this would have been avoided. And I think going forward, the one thing we must learn is, what are our recommendations from this, and the management plan's got to be top of it. Just has to be top of it. And it's not just for Prom Park, it's also for Riverside and the cemeteries. We need plans that we can take forward and make the best of some great assets that we have. And we also need to encourage local people to be coming forward and wanting to do things in our parks, our cemeteries, any of our open spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I'll just something small, brief to add. Just absolutely concur with you, Councillor Mays, about the importance of the management plan. But the other thing that I wanted to say, and this has raised it, but I had a similar situation, and where actually I was able to meet with Mr. Holmes and one of the other Burnham councillors, Councillor Stamp, about how important some things are to the residents, to the people of the district, that officers and even other members might not actually realise. And it's very clear how much this shelter meant to you, Councillor Lagan. And I've only really, I guess, understood and appreciated that when one of Burnham's most important, most valued, most historical assets was actually possibly questioned for the chop. And I went absolutely ballistic. But I'll tell you later. Oh, it was the town steps, the key, where,
Okay.
yeah. But I think this is a communication thing, isn't it? And I think this is where yet plans come in, that we have to make sure that officers and members really realise what assets mean to people on an emotional level, not just on a financial level, because that is what is important to residents. Anyway, before I start rambling, I will stop now. Thank you. So we're moving forward. I'll just come back to you for right of reply. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points. Yeah, we do have policies in place, and the uniqueness of this situation, you can hide that inside those policies all you like. Councillor Bella said something that's really important. This is important. It was important to me, this asset, as a lad born and bred in Maldon. But the amount of people that contacted me, I'm elected from the residents. I bring the residents' calls forward, and the plethora of people that came in with the concern, and then with the start and the council, but brown bags, backhanders. I've never said you've taken any bribes. or
I think
anything
we
of
can
that
say
nature.
that certainly wasn't directed at Mr Butcher, but as members we get that.
Yeah,
on
we
social
get that all the
media
time.
all
As
the
officers,
time,
you have no
all
clue what we
the
go
time.
through, to be brutally honest with you. Yeah, we might grill officers. I think I grill in a firm but fair way where I have an expectation to get information to be able to take back to residents. You may have considered that, and you do consider that you've acted in the scheme of delegation. I've always said the constitution of this council needs to be looked at, and that scheme of delegation, as I said earlier on, should be looked at. What's done's done. I think we need to learn from it. The applicant, as I said, it's never been about the applicant. It's been about the process. I still have a reservation that, yes, we've gone out and we've got the value of the asset. I saw that in the report. If we can get more, great. You know, if we're looking about commercialisation by its very definition is about making money. So we want to make money. So why shouldn't we look at other aspects? And there are clauses in this contract, as you know, that is a very advantageous contract. Well done, you know. But when we go out to the market again for other assets that we're going to be looking at, I think we just need to do it in a much more open, much more transparent way, because those things that appear to be a smelly little shelter that smells a wee, or a crappy old flower bed, well, somebody's grandfather laid those stones in 1919, so they mean something to people. That's why it's passionate. So as far as I'm concerned, what's done, I'll always be disappointed by the methodology. As a previous officer of 2 local authorities, I've also been in that situation in management positions, so I understand it. I don't particularly like what happened, but I accept it. I also accepted, Madam Chairman, when the planning committee made the decision to give approval. But I still can't get my head around how you can approve something without looking at what the value it can bring in at the time of approval. It just seems back to front to me. Thank you for letting me reply. And
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, members, can we now agree that the committee can conclude our work on this item? Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Can we agree that by assent, members? Super. Thank you very much. So, item 9, I don't have any other items of business that I consider to be urgent. So, I now draw the meeting to a close at 2012. Thank you all very, very much for. I do really appreciate that it's been